Welcome to Force Fire Day here on 5 Minute Geek Out, video series where we take a look at Star Wars. This week we're going to take a look at one of the baddest bounty hunters in the galaxy, the masked Mandalorian himself, Boba Fett. With several non-numeral movies slated to release, including next year's Rogue One and a Han Solo series, fans are hoping, myself included, that Boba will be getting some serious screen time. Now, I will share a rumor that I heard from a friend of mine that works for the place that works for Star Wars. He said that right after the House of Mouse bought Star Wars, his team was told to, quote, get the bounty hunters ready. I don't know what that means for sure, but I think it means we can see Bosk and maybe IG-88 and probably Boba come together, maybe Dengar, who knows. It could mean anything, but there's a lot of rumors circling about a TV series or a heist movie dealing with bounty hunters we've seen in the Star Wars galaxy before. I'm pretty psyched for it, but I don't know any more right now. So with all these rumors and everything else going on, I thought it might be cool to look at a brief history of Mr. Fett. Now, anyone that's ever took a look at any of the Wikipedias or any of the holocrons knows that Boba Fett has a very storied and long history, one that I can't really cram into this video. It would take a series just to go over it. So, for the sake of argument, I'm just going to be going over as much as possible and really just glossing over parts that we've already seen in some of the established, more majorly known aspects like the movies and the TV series and some of the more popular books. So now on with the show. For those that don't know, Boba was born, or rather cloned, on Kamino in the year 32, years before Yavin, that is. That's the standard Star Wars timeline. If you don't know, go look it up. It's the battle at the end of A New Hope, so when the Death Star exploded. Anyway, he was cloned from the Mandalorian warrior Jango Fett, who was the source of the DNA also used for the clone troopers, meaning that while Boba is a loner, he has a ton of brothers, like a whole army of brothers. Jango was slayed by Obi-Wan when Boba was 10 at the Battle of Geonosis, right when the Clone War began. Boba, being as bad as he was, he flew off in the equally awesome Slave One, and he was going to roam the galaxy and become the feared bounty hunter we know. However, that's not quite what happened. Now, that's where the prequels kind of leave us. But then we see in the Clone Wars that it turns out that Boba was no match for the cold reality of a galaxy at war. He was actually captured by another bounty hunter called Arya Singh, and she turned him over to Darth Tyrannus, aka Count Dooku. However, that was pretty short-lived as he was soon rescued by the clone troopers and taken to an orphanage on Bespin. Yet again, he was found by Arya trying to escape, and she was looking for a way to get to Jango's stash of credits. Despite a few scrapes, Boba managed to escape, and he escaped with most of the credits too. Now, he did team back up with some other bounty hunters, including Singh at some point, to hunt down Mace Windu because he held him and the Jedi accountable for his father's death. It was a pretty hardcore grudge too, because he joined the Clone Youth Brigade just to plant a bomb in Mace Windu's quarters. Now, despite much Angler and Nazi references here, this led to a long feud between Fett and the Jedi, a grudge he would carry for a very, very long time. It would stretch through the Clone Wars and beyond. There's a lot of run-ins here and there, but the too long didn't read of it all is that they fought a lot and neither side really won, because we see that there's still Jedi and there's still Boba. Now, according to the former canon and probable source material of the old EU, it was during this off-screen time of his adventures that he worked often with the Empire, and especially with Vader, who actually held him in some sort of respect. He begrudgingly likes Boba, or at least respects his skills. In an attempt at normalcy, Boba actually married fellow bounty hunter Princess Vel. The two actually went on to have a daughter named Island. It's crazy, right? No one knows that Boba Fett has a family, but he does. Or whether he did in the old EU, and he should, because he deserves it. He even tried to go legit and became a journeyman protector, which is a type of lawman that they had over at this place called Concord Dawn, a Mandalorian planet on the Outer Rim. It's a title that was formerly held by his grandfather. Well, I guess clones have grandfathers, so technically maybe his dad, but also not. And everything seemed pretty good anyway, but then Lenovar, his superior in the Protectors, raped his wife. Things got a little bit bloody then. Boba was exiled. His family went with him, but yeah, he got divorced. His life fell apart pretty quickly. She actually got captured and frozen in carbonite, ironically, and his daughter thought that he had left her mother to die, and so she really came to hate him. Just not a good picture all around. You can find out more about it if you look around. It's pretty interesting, actually. So, just time out here. Doesn't that sound like it would be the perfect Star Wars movie? It's pretty much a space western. Centered around Boba Fett, the guy goes legit and then is forced by a corrupt system to turn into the bad guy. We need that movie. Alright, back to it. Now, Boba took a lot of jobs, but there's actually an interesting thing that happened right before New Hope, where he saved Vader from being interrogated and probably tortured on Dantooine. Vader had been captured by his apprentice / clone and the rebellion. Yeah, Starkiller had him, and Boba had to come save him. That's pretty hardcore, because Vader's not the kind of guy that needs saving. Then, skipping over the special editions, we don't really see Boba again until Empire, when we see him track down and capture Han for Jabba the Hutt and Vader, technically, I guess. Anyway, that sort of leads to his death. I say sort of because, yes, he fell into the Sarlacc pit, and that probably would have been the end of a lesser Mandalore, but it wasn't for Boba, and I really don't like this part of the movie, so I'm skipping it over because he deserved better. So, I should tell you that being one of the greatest bounty hunters and trackers in the galaxy is not a rep that one gets for giving up. The EU actually saw Boba crawl his way out of the Sarlacc pit and become the Mandalore. Now, for those that aren't complete nerds, Mandalore, or Mandalore, is the title that was given to the biggest and the baddest of his race, the Mandalorians, who are generally known for being big and bad. Boba as the leader proved time and time again that he was a bad mother. When the Yuuzhan Vong invaded, he was there to serve as a double agent. He appeared to side with them, but really he was using his position to smuggle information to the New Republic and prepare his own people to fight them back. Now, unfortunately, the Vong discovers his plan to attack Mandalore, which was the home world. But, fortunately, he's also the leader of the frickin' Mandalore, so despite the Vong being one of the biggest threats the galaxy had seen in some time, they pretty much beat them all over the place, and with a few other scattering fragments, they managed to win the Galactic War. Now, we'd all expect Boba to be pretty good at winning wars and fighting people, and sure, they paid a pretty high cost for it. It wasn't like they get out for nothing. They had a huge problem repopulating and rebuilding and getting their economy and technology and position in the galaxy established. But surprisingly, he was pretty effective as a leader too. I mean, the guy can do everything. Now, Boba had aged pretty well by this point, but he still managed to lead his people in the Second Galactic Civil War, during which time he discovered his granddaughter, Mirta. Semi-befriended Han Solo even, and when Jacen Solo became, the evil Sith Lord that was trying to take over the universe and reform the Empire, kinda, he trained his twin, Jaina, to kill him, and even fought alongside Jedi. The dude got over his own grudges. It's pretty hardcore. Sadly, a fragment of the Empire known as the Galactic Alliance unleashed a nanovirus onto Mandalore that targeted only Fett family DNA, meaning they could never return to their own homeworld. Boba went from orphan clone to highly regarded leader on a galactic level. Also, he went back to being an orphan but still being a badass. He redeemed himself almost completely. Also, let's not forget that his redemption really is something we don't need. Boba Fett is seen as a bad guy based on what he did to Han, but the dude was a drug smuggler who had a debt to a crime boss and was an outlaw. Boba Fett was more on the side of right than Han was, so it's all kind of relative. Anyway, that's a really brief overview, a really short history of Boba Fett, but I felt like it was worth getting out there because a lot of people love this character, but don't realize how deep he is. Thanks for joining me. We'll be back next week. I'm going to look at the prequels. I'll just leave it at that because the prequel.